السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. بسم الله الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه ومن والاه. اللهم لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم. اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا علما وأرنا الحق حقا وارزقنا اتباعه وأرنا الباطل باطلا وارزقنا اجتنابه وأدخلنا برحمتك في عبادك الصالحين آمين يا رب العالمين. Welcome everybody to our last day of the Fiqh of Zakat. And we like to begin inshallah with some muraja. طبعا we've covered all these topics, the rulings, the main rulings and obligation, zakat on animals, zakat on al-kharij min al-ard, the things that come from the earth, gold and silver, merchandise, zakat al-fitr. That was our last topic. Today we're going to go through some of the main topics on payments, the recipients of the payments, and as-sadaqah. The fuqaha, they include bab as-sadaqah, الصدقة in يعني تطوع يعني the voluntary sadaqah in this chapter as well inshallah. So the three yellow ones there inshallah, that's what we'll be covering tonight بإذن الله تعالى. طيب نبدأ with some مراجعة بسم الله. السؤال الأول, so what are the two conditions for what comes out of the earth to be zakatable, يعني to be eligible for zakat? We said the things that come from the earth, they have to have two things. Do you remember? So something that's measurable, and لازم يكون مكيل. They say مكيل, something measurable. You can weigh it, you can measure it. تمام. And the other thing is that storable. Yes, يدخر. They say يدخر, يعني something that you can store. It can't be something that goes bad in a few days or whatever. يعني something that can be stored. So something that can be measured, weighed, and something that can be stored. Mumtaz. So if you can use those two, you can answer any question, anything that comes out of the earth, the trees, whatever. Okay, you can figure it out with those two rules. Something that is measurable and it doesn't go bad. Yani it's non-perishable. I mean, it's perishable, but yani not right away. What is the nisab for that which comes out of the earth? When we say nisab, we say the amount that it has to reach for you to give zakat. How much did you say, sir? 300 sauce. Okay, good. So he said خمسة أوسق. Okay, 5 أوسق. والوسق is a measurement that they used to use back then, which comes to about 300 sauce, which basically gave us, did we mention the kilograms? Yeah, we mentioned something like 600 kilograms or something like that. Okay, and so if you have anything less than that, then you wouldn't have to give zakat. You wouldn't have to give zakat. I just want to confirm. 612 kilograms. And that's about what they came up with. Even if it's off by a little bit, depending on the accuracy of the conversions that they're doing. But it's about 600 kilograms, okay? So if you have 200 kilograms, you don't have to give zakat. So you have to reach that amount, okay? That's the nisab for the kharij min al-ard. The nisab for gold and silver, we mentioned that as well, right? So what amount is paid in zakat from these ones, the kharij min al-ard? 1/10. Naam, al-ushur. We call them al-ushur. These are al-ushur that you pay 1/10. Okay, 1/10 of it goes. Okay, so if someone had let's say 700 kilograms, okay, how much he would give in zakah? 70. Naam, 70, because that's the ushur, that's the 10th. MashaAllah, good math. طيب, let's keep going. Muraja. Does it need a hawl? Remember, nisab is the amount, and it needs, and the hawl is, the whole year, okay, or the time that you need to have it, possess it. Does it have a hawl? No. Okay. The al-kharij min al-ard does not have a hawl. Okay. وَآتُوا حَقَّهُ يَوْمَ حَصَادِهِ. As soon as you harvest it, and we said, and you put it in your you have it in your possession, and we said the condition was that it's بدو صلاحه, and it's edible, and it's ready to be eaten. Okay, then, and you have possession of it, then you can and you reach the nisab, then you pay zakat right away. Okay, it's zakatable right away. It doesn't have a hawl like gold and silver. I'm asking the questions of the most uncommon ones. I know the gold and silver is very common. Honey, you got honey. Okay, what's the nisab for honey? Whatever we said in the other ones, 600 kilograms, just divide it by 10. Okay, it's about 60 kilograms, 62 kilograms. That's the nisab for honey. Okay, obviously because honey is much harder to get, right? And so, but it's also the ushur. You also give the 10th. So if you got like 70 kilograms, you give like 7, right? That's for honey, al-asal. We talked about gold and silver. طبعا we talked about the nisab for gold and silver, 85 grams for the gold, and how much for silver? 595, right? For silver. Are men allowed to have any gold on themselves at all? Huh? Yeah, we talked about fidda, can be the khatim, the ring. We also talked about the pommel of the qub'at al-sayf, the bottom of the sword. Some of the Sahaba had it in gold or silver. We also talked about مثلا, these are situations where مثلا, somebody has a damage in their face or somewhere, and he needs and can only be fixed with some gold or some silver. Then some of the ulama allowed it, and we have a hadith of one of the companions that his nose was cut off, and he put like a dhahab for his nose. Okay, so those are the exceptions. طبعا women, it's open for them. طيب, how is zakat for merchandise calculated? Do you remember merchandise we talked about? Someone has a business and he's got some merchandise. How is it, like, how do you figure it out? Do you do it by itself? Does it have its own calculations, or is it added with something else? No business people here? Huh? It's added with your gold and silver. With your cash. Okay? So your gold, silver, cash, all that is added together. Do you remember we talked about gold and silver and we said if the nisab for gold is 85 grams and the nisab for silver is 595, okay? 85, 595. You with me? And you only have 80 gold and 550 of silver. طيب, are you going to pay zakah? And you've had them for a year. Are you going to pay zakah? Huh? Are you going to pay zakah? Yeah, you have to join them together. So technically, if we just had gold 80, you wouldn't pay zakah. But you add gold and silver. Okay? Okay, and I can give you, I'll say you had 40 grams of gold, okay, and 300 grams of silver, actual gold and silver, and some cash, and some merchandise, and all of that together reach the 11,000, which is the current nisab right now, 11,000, 12,000, okay, and the hawl has gone, then you would pay zakah. So you have to put those all together, right? You have to put those all together, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala. طبعا the merchandise that you have, we say, it's on the price that you bought it, okay, not the price that you're planning to sell. The last question, what is the ruling for someone who gives zakat al-fitr after Maghrib of the day of Eid? We said that there's like 5 times, okay? There's times where it's recommended, there's times where it's wajib, right? There's times where it's okay, yajuz, jaiz, and there's time where it's makruh, and it's time where it's haram. Okay? If someone gave it, khalas, we prayed Salat al-Eid, people went and whatever, and then now it's Maghrib time. Okay? This is the time of tahrim. Khalas, now he's late. Okay? So the ruling is that it's haram, but does he still have to pay? He still has to pay it, qada'an. This is what the Hanabila say. He still has to pay it, qada'an, okay? And he's sinful for that, unless he has an excuse. And if he has a valid excuse, then, yeah. طيب, Jamil, let's get down to business. So, rules related to zakat payments. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. يقول المؤلف رحمه الله فصل في إخراج الزكاة وأهلها. Okay, so he's going to talk about إخراج الزكاة, يعني distributing the zakah and its people. So he says here ويجب إخراج زكاة على الفور مع إمكانه. So يجب, يعني this is wajib. He says this is an obligation to take out the zakah, distribute the zakah, إخراج الزكاة, okay, على الفور. إيش يعني على الفور? Immediately. This is there's a قاعدة أصولية that the Hanabila and I think the Shafi'iyya as well, that the asl in the wajibat is al-fawriyya. Al-asl in the wajib, okay, is that you're supposed to do it immediately. Okay? There are situations where the wajib is muwassa'. Like what? Like what? Like what are the, you know? Like salah. Okay? Is it wajib to pray it at the iqam and the adhan? Is it wajib? Like, are you sinful if you pray like dhuhr like 1:45 or like 2 o'clock or 3 o'clock? No. So it's not ala al-fawr. Okay? It's muwassa'. Okay? But the asl and the other things is ala al-fawr. When the conditions are met, and that's why they say مثلا, as soon as you have cash enough for hajj, you have enough for your family, you are physically able, then it's wajib. You cannot delay it. You cannot be like, this year I'm going to go to I'm going to go to do a tour around the US and then next year hajj. No, they say it's wajib on you because now you're able, okay, and you don't know what's going to happen, okay, unless you have a dalil that it's muwassa', that it's flexible, okay. فيجب إخراج الزكاة على الفور مع إمكانه. The condition is while he's able. So if he's able to do it, then it's wajib to do that, okay. Yeah, he says here لأن الأوامر عندنا كلها محمولة على الفورية. Yeah, the commands are always on. يعني you have to do it على الفورية right away. طيب, so it must be paid immediately as soon as it becomes wajib, unless you have a valid excuse. The next thing he says here, ويخرج ولي صغير, okay, ومجنون عنهما. Okay, so al-wali, the one responsible for the صغير and the majnoon. طبعا can a young boy who's not baligh, who's not rashid, not mature, financially mature, يعني mentally mature, and يعني Islamically mature and financially mature. Financial maturity, what does it mean in Sharia? Someone who is, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Surah An-Nisa, فَإِنْ آنَسْتُم مِّنْهُمْ رُشْدًا فَادْفَعُوا إِلَيْهِمْ أَمْوَالَهُم. In Surah An-Nisa, one of the topics discussed a lot is أموال اليتامى. إن الذين يأكلون أموال اليتامى ظلما إنما يأكلون في بطونهم نارا. That the people who eat the amwal of the yatama, okay, then they are eating fire. Okay, why he mentioned the yatam? Because they're weak. The yatim, he's weak. No one's there to protect him. His father has passed away, and he might have wealth left behind, right? And so the guardian, the uncle or whatever, the grandfather or whatever, okay, these people used to be vulnerable, and so people take advantage of their wealth. Subhanallah. The Sharia came and said, no, you can't touch that person's wealth unless you're the guardian, and مثلا you're poor, okay. فليأكل بالمعروف, Allah says. ومن كان غنيا فليستعفف. Whoever is wealthy, يستعفف, stay away from that money. ومن كان فقيرا فليأكل بالمعروف. Whoever is poor, then yes, you are put responsible for his wealth and you are doing a service, so you can use some of it بالمعروف, okay, with whatever you need. Don't go buying a Lexus, okay. But you do, you use what you need. How did I go there? Yeah, because so here the guardian, the one who's responsible, because Allah mentions فَإِنْ آنَسْتُم مِّنْهُمْ رُشْدًا فَادْفَعُوا إِلَيْهِمْ أَمْوَالَهُم. There's a child who his father passed away and he's got like $1 million inheritance. So do we go to the 10-year-old and say, تفضل, go ahead, يلا, it's his money? No. Even here in the in the legal system here, you can't do that. Can you do that? You can't do that. Can't do that, right? Okay. ففي الشرع you can't do that. The only way is آنَسْتُم مِّنْهُمْ رُشْدًا. You see that they are financially mature. There's no number. You can't say at 18 and etc. The guardian, and the fuqaha mention, they say مثلا, you give him $20 and you see how he spends it. Okay? If he spends it properly, he saves some of it and he uses the other just to use it for a bus ride or something like that, then it shows some maturity. But if he's gone and he bought like something useless, some stickers, and he threw them in the garbage, this kid is not mature yet. Right? Because you can have 30-year-olds who do that. Sah? Everybody agree here? You can have 30-year-olds who are not mature with their money. Right? طبعا if it's his money, nobody can tell him what to do with it. Right? But if someone is a guardian over that, so it says here, the saghir and the majnoon. Because even the majnoon, we cannot give him the money. We can't give a majnoon, a crazy person, okay, the money. So, وَيُخْرِجُ. But, there's $1 million in the bank. No zakat on it? No, that's haqq on the money. This is haqq of the poor. Okay, so who's responsible? The majnoon doesn't know. The saghir doesn't know. He's not Rashid yet. Who's responsible? Al-wali, the guardian. And he's atham if he doesn't take it out. And this is a big deal because I'm sure there's lots of people who are maybe guarding someone else's money and they don't realize that you have to pay zakat on that. And the second you realize that you've missed, you have to pay in all those years. This is dain. This is dain that has to be paid for that money. So وَيُخْرِجُ وَلِيُّ صَغِيرٍ وَمَجْنُونٍ عَنْهُمَا. He takes it out on behalf of both of them, wujuban. This is wajib, okay? وَشُرِطَ لَهُ نِيَّةٌ. Okay? So, so now he talks about the second thing. So the guardian of a child or an insane person pays it on their behalf. Zakat is due on such people's wealth as well. Guardian's intention to give it must take place before paying the zakat. Because now he says, وَشُرِطَ لَهُ نِيَّةٌ. شُرِطَ لَهُ يعني الزكاة, and يعني for those two individuals, يعني you're paying zakat for the saghir, the young child, or the majnoon that you're in charge of their money, and you have to make the niyyah for that. إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالُ بِالنِّيَّاتِ. And also, he mentions, and also for yourself. Why is this important? Because sometimes people come and tell us, مثلا, I gave this person, money, okay, to help him out. Oh, then I realized my zakah was due. Okay, so I'm good, I'm cool, right? I've paid my zakah. No, Habibi, you didn't. That was sadaqah because your niyyah was sadaqah. Okay, you cannot do that and then be like, oh, what? And if someone walks in right now and he wants to pray, he walks in right now and he does takbiratul ihram. He enters salah. Okay, he didn't make an intention for a specific salah. What's he praying now? He's praying nafil. Right away it goes to nafil. That's the default. Okay? Because he didn't intend asr. It's asr time. Can he switch it? No. He finishes nafil and then you cannot go from a nafila to a farida. Okay? So if someone enters and does takbir al-ihram and he makes the intention, he doesn't make an intention, then you cannot say, oh, now it's asr. You can't do that. And the same thing with zakat. So وَشُرِطَ لَهُ نِيَّةٌ. He says the niyyah, okay, is they mention in the hashia here, like the muallif, he mentions some exceptions. Like for example, whoever it's taken for him by force, قهرا, okay, فَتُجْزِئُ ظَاهِرًا. Or like if he lost his money, then it appeared later, okay. There's some exceptions, but the asl is that you need the niyyah. طيب, and then he says, okay, this is an interesting mas'ala. He says, وَحَرُمَ نَقْلَهَا إِلَى مَسَافَةِ قَصْرٍ إِن وُجِدَ أَهْلُهَا. Haram, it's haram, it's impermissible, okay, to transfer your zakat to a distance that would allow shortening the prayer, يعني مسافة قصر, right? Which is like for the safar, right? طبعا we said the Hanabila and the other main madhahib, they went by measurements, okay? But we said that technically speaking, that's not logical these days. It doesn't make sense to go by distance. We go by, مثلا, someone is considered a musafir. Okay, he's left, it says bye-bye Calgary or whatever. Yani he's left the city boundary and he's a musafir, khalas. Now he's a musafir. It's not about distance. Khalas, now if the city expands, are you going to say, if he's in north of the city, we're going to say he's a musafir? He's not a musafir. Everybody knows he's not a musafir. Okay, so nowadays it's not about distance. We're going to say about his status. But they're saying here that, because this is a question we get every year, am I allowed to give zakah overseas? Now I want you to understand there's two zakahs, zakatul mal, zakatul fitr. Zakatul mal is the big amount, the one that's paid on your money and your what comes out of the earth and your cattle, and zakat al-fitr is what's given after Ramadan. okay, just to help the poor people on the day of Eid, okay, which is a small amount, $10, $15, okay. Now they say here that zakatul mal tutbi'ul mal wa zakatul fitr tutbi'ul badan. They say zakat al-mal, it follows where the money is, its location. Wa zakat al-fitr, it follows the badan, the body, the person who it's wajib on. Okay? So this is a qa'id that the ulama use. Where did they get this from? They get it from hadith Mu'ad radiallahu anhu. When the Prophet sent him to Yemen, remember he told him, invite them to Islam, and if they accept, tell them that they have to pray, and if they accept, tell them that Allah has obligated for them to pay zakat. It's taken from their rich and given to their poor. For Damir here, the pronoun is going back to the people of Yemen, those people, okay? Because if everybody decides to give zakat outside, what's going to happen to the local poor people? They're not going to have. And so where do you say this much, how much? And so they said no. The asl. Remember when we give these, when the ulama say these rules, this is the default, the asl. Is there exceptions? Yes, there could be exceptions. So you're not supposed to give it abroad, okay? And it has to be given local. But now, okay, so let's say you have money in San Francisco, or okay, you have money in Algeria, okay, or money in Syria, but you're here in Calgary, okay? طيب. The money in Algeria and in Syria, do you pay it to the locals here? No. They said the zakat al-mal goes to where it's located, okay? So if it's located in Algeria, you give zakat for that money in that location. Tamam? But zakat al-fitr is given to the locals. Zakat al-fitr is given to the locals. Look what he says here. He says, طبعا إن وجد أهلها. But what if there's no poor people in Calgary? It's mentioned that this happened in some places in history. They mentioned مثلا in the time of Umar ibn Abdul Aziz, مثلا there's no poor people here. What are we going to do? خلاص, we go to the next city. We go to Edmonton. You know, we go to Edmonton and say, hey, is there any poor people there? No one. Okay, then what's next? What's after Edmonton? Okay, we go to the next one, yeah. Fort McMurray and whatever, right? We go south. So we look for those people, go east, we go west, يعني within the vicinity, those people. So we're not going to go to, we're not going to go to the United Kingdom. We're going to go first to the closer, and then to the further. تمام? Look, he says, فإن كان في بلد ماله في آخر أخرج زكاة المال في بلد المال. Yes. So if كان فإن كان في بلد, if he's in a country, وماله في آخر, and his money is in another country, أخرج زكاة المال في بلد المال. He takes the zakat of that money, okay, in that country, okay. So if you have money in another country, the zakat goes to the people of that, okay, of that. So if you have money in the Swiss bank, خلاص, the Muslims of Switzerland, okay, they get zakat for that. وفطرته, okay, وفطرة لزمته, okay, في بلد نفسه. نعم, في بلد نفسه. And we mentioned that the zakat al-fitr, it goes to the locals. I know there's some opinions that will tell you, yes, you can send zakat al-fitr abroad, but al-asl is that it's sent here, right? It's sent here. Because look what he says in the hashiyah here. He says, وَلَوْ كَانَ لِرَحِمٍ أَوْ أَشَدُّ حَاجَةٍ. Even if it's for a rahim, يعني someone who's blood related. يعني you have someone who's blood related. يعني you have a father who's in need of money. They said even him, you don't give him the zakat al-mal. Okay, whoa, I got some eyebrows. What do you mean? Okay, step back. You're going to see later. Aslan, the father who's in need, it's wajib for you to give him aslan. Yani the Sharia obligates you who has money, okay, if your father is in need, you give him aslan. Why are you waiting for zakat? Right? Why are you waiting for zakat? You should, if you're able to pay zakat, that means you have extra cash. Everyone agree? If you're able to pay zakat, that means you've had 11,000 for a whole year. that means you should have given some of that money to your father who was in need, right? So that's why they're saying even if it's for a rahim, like someone who's close, right? Or a child. You have a child abroad, okay? You say, I'm going to give. No, that doesn't make sense, right? Why would you give him, right? He's someone that you're responsible for. Or even if someone that is in need, aslan, okay? You're supposed to give him from your wealth, aslan. طيب. And then he says, okay, yeah, we mentioned that if you're in a city and your wealth is in another city, then you pay zakat. Your zakat will be paid where your wealth is held. Okay, but zakat al-fitr, you pay it to the locals. طبعا remember that the Hanabila believe that you have to pay the actual food. You give the food. So obviously it makes sense that you give it to the local. You're not going to send a bag of rice to Zimbabwe or somewhere else, or that's too much hassle. The shipping of the bag of rice is more than the price of the bag of rice. So it doesn't make sense. Okay. Also he says here وَيَجُوزُ تَعْجِيلُهَا لِحَوْلَيْنِ فَقَطْ. And it's allowed to ta'jiliha, to pay it in advance by 2 years. Okay, and we have the evidence for this is hadith bin Abbas, or Al-Abbas, afwan, I believe Al-Abbas radiyallahu anhu, that the Prophet ﷺ allowed him to do that if there is a need for something like that. Okay, مثلا if there is like a big drought or like a disaster, a natural disaster, or there's a need and someone is really wealthy and like there's no money to be given, so this guy can pay his zakat 2 years in advance, as far as 2 years. He can pay 1 year in advance, okay, and then when the time the other haul comes, he doesn't have to pay. Does that make sense? He can pay in advance, okay, because there's a need for it. Because there's a need for it, okay. ولا تدفع إلا إلى الأصناف الثمانية. And now he's going to talk about the recipients of zakat. You can't give zakat whoever you like, okay? You can't be like, I got, my friend, he's going to university, he needs some cash, I'm rich, I'll give him some. You can't just do it. You have to figure out, is he one of the 8 asnaf which are mentioned in surah? Anybody know what surah? The 8 recipients of zakat. What surah are they mentioned in? It's the only surah that doesn't have Bismillah. Yeah, Surah At-Tawbah. Surah At-Tawbah, okay, has and Allah called it sadaqat. He says بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم إنما الصدقات إنما, and إنما is used for hasr, يعني for exclusivity, يعني it's only for الصدقات. Here it means الزكاة. Okay, إنما الصدقات للفقراء والمساكين والعاملين عليها, okay, so للفقراء والمساكين والعاملين عليها والمؤلفة قلوبهم, okay, وفي الرقاب, okay, وفي الرقاب وفي سبيل الله وابن السبيل, okay, and العاملين عليها, we didn't mention them. Okay, so those are the 8. Let's go through them, the 8, and who are they exactly? Okay, so it can only be given to these one of these 8. طيب. للفقراء. Okay, للفقراء is the plural of فقير. Okay. والفقير طبعا النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم taught us the dua اللهم إني أعوذ بك من الكفر والفقر. This is a dua that you say in the morning and evening. اللهم إني أعوذ بك من الكفر والفقر. Oh Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, I seek refuge in you from disbelief and poverty. So he used to seek refuge in poverty. And so some people say this is dalil that it's not something noble for someone to try to be poor, right? Someone should not try to be poor. It's not something righteous to try to be poor, because the Prophet otherwise he wouldn't ask Allah to protect him for poverty, right? It's not from the sunnah for someone to try to be poor. So al-fuqara. So we have al-fuqara wal-masakin wal-amilina alayha. Okay, so al-fuqara are the poor. I'm going to just list them so you have an idea. Fuqara are the poor. Al-masakin are the one in need. We're going to see the difference between them. Al-amilina alayha are the ones who are collecting it, who are working to collect it and do the work to distribute it. Wal-mu'allafatu qulubuhum. Those are the people that we're trying to gain their approval or closeness to Islam. We're trying to bring them closer to Islam, or we're trying to push away harm from them. We'll explain what that means. Okay, وَفِي الرِّقَابِ, and those who are enslaved, in slavery. وَالْغَارِمِينَ, those who are in debt. Okay, وَفِي سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ, and فِي سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ, we'll see, what does that mean, فِي سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ? For the sake of Allah, like in general. Okay, وَابْنَ السَّبِيلِ, and the son of the path. Who's the traveler? Yani, this is literally means ibn السَّبِيل, the son of the road, yani, the traveler. This is a kunya for the person who's a traveler. So those are the 8. Let's go through them. طبعا الفقير, who's الفقير? They say الفقير, ضابط الفقير من لا يجد شيئا البتة. He doesn't have anything. ما في أكل, there's no food, there's nothing. ما لا يجد شيئا البتة أو يجد أقل من نصف كفايته. This is a good description. Or he has less than half of what he needs. He has less than half of what he needs. So, and they do it annually. That's how they calculate it. So let's say you're someone who needs, for a single person nowadays, let's say a single person, he needs 50,000, for example. Is that about like, is that accurate for a single person? 40,000, 50,000? Everybody agree, or is it less? Huh? Up, صح, nowadays up. But let's say 50 just for math, yeah? So let's say 50,000 is the kifaya. Okay, that's what he needs, a single person. Okay? So if he has less than half of that, then he's faqir. What's that? So 24,000. Half of that is 25. Less than half is 24,000. So if someone who annually it's 50 is enough for him, but he only makes 24,000, okay, then he's considered a faqir. Okay, he's considered someone who is faqir. So don't think of faqir as someone who's begging in the street. It could be someone who, like, he has a job, but it gives him less than half of what he needs. واضح؟ طيب. The miskin, they say, من يجد نصف كفايته أو أكثر. So, same example. Whoever has half of what he needs. Okay? Half of what he needs or more. Yani, let's say what he needs is 50. We're going to stick with the same guy. Annually he needs 50,000. This guy makes between 25 and 49,000. He makes 40,000. Okay? Is it enough for him? No. Is it better than the faqir? Yes. So he's still miskin though. Right? He might have a car. He lives in an apartment. Okay? But he's not paying the bills. He's got duyun. He's borrowing from people. Okay, so he's a miskin. So when you see him, he might look normal. You're like, this guy doesn't need zakat. No, he might be a miskin. You don't know. And we know the dalil in Surah Al-Kahf, right? Al-Khidr, right? Allah called the people who own the ship. Anybody own a ship here? You'd be rich if you had it. A ship is expensive. Little boat, it's not cheap. Little yacht with a... those people owned, but Allah called them masakin. Allah called them in Surah Al-Kahf masakin. Right? Remember Al-Khidr, like he put a hole in it and he let it sink. And then Musa's like, alayhi salam, like, what are you doing? Why would you do that? Okay? أَخَرَقْتَهَا لِتُغْرِقَ أَهْلَهَا? Like, are you trying to... And then later he told them, I didn't want the pirates to take the ship from the masakin, because they're masakin. They depended on the income from that. واضح? طيب. So that's the miskin. So the first son. Now, question now, did Allah put them in order for a reason? This is a question that comes up. Some of the fuqaha, they say yes. And when you look at it, the faqir, and this is a huge debate in fiqh, by the way, who's more in need, faqir or miskin? And there's actually very good evidence on both sides. Okay? But let's just go with the faqir as the one most in need. Okay? So some of the ulama say, yes, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala put them in order for a reason, because those are the more in need. Those are the more in need. Like someone who's gharim, who's in debt, he can wait a bit, maybe. But someone who's faqir, he has less than half of what he needs, this guy is going to be in the streets very soon. So he's in more dire need than the other person. So al-fuqara, the poor. So one who has less than half of his needs. I give an example. Okay, there's another example here. Miskin, one who has half or more than half of his needs. Okay,
but not all. Tamam? And nowadays, like now with the expenses and the economy getting difficult, so a lot of people will fall in this category. Yani someone who's paycheck to paycheck or less than that, he would be a miskin. Do you guys agree? So he would be considered a miskin. So he would actually be eligible for zakat. A person who's not, he's not catching up with his bills and he's got loans, right? Credit card loans. That person would be considered a miskin. So he'd be eligible for zakat, subhanallah. Okay? Then he says, وَالْعَامِلِينَ عَلَيْهَا. Okay? Al-amilin alayha are those people who collect the zakat. So back in the day, they would go out and they would be going and traveling and knocking on doors and how many sheep you got, how many camels you got, they would have to carry them, and it's a job. Okay? Now, if the wali al-amr, if the khalifa, if the president, if the king, okay, is giving them a ratib, is giving them an allowance already, then they don't take from it. Does that make sense? If they're getting from Bayt al-Mal already, they don't. But those who are doing it, okay, and they don't have, they're not getting a salary for it, then this is who they're talking about. Those who collect and distribute zakat. And this includes like organizations. The organizations, Zakat Foundation, other organizations that collect the zakat, they get, but the question here is how much? And this is where it gets problematic. Like, can you do qiyas on like corporations? And مثلا the CEO gets 6-figured, he's عاملين عليها. So this is where it gets tricky, and this is where some will say no, he's doing a huge favor. He's running the company, non-for-profit company, and he deserves that salary. Okay, but it's a very, very dangerous area. People have to be careful with that, okay? But something that is reasonable, and you can go to the urf. You can go to the urf, to the customs, and see what is a and this goes back to the ulama and the specialists in that field. What is a good hourly مثلا wage for someone who's working to collect zakat and distribute it, and all the work that goes with it, distribution and collection and all those things, and maybe he has to, someone who's working on the software for it, etc. That can all go towards the salaries of those people. وَالْعَامِلِينَ عَلَيْهَا وَالْعَامِلِينَ عَلَيْهَا. The fourth category, وَالْمُؤَلَّفَةِ قُلُوبُهُم. This is a very interesting one because al-qulub are hearts. Those whose hearts should be softened. Maybe that's the best translation. تَأَلُّفِ الْقُلُوب, to soften their hearts. And Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam used to do that. He would give zakat to the enemies of Islam, or those people who he thought that if they accepted Islam, then they would bring glory to Islam. Does that make sense? These are the mu'allafat qulubuhum. Okay? So, al-mu'allafat qulubuhum, the ulama, they say, man yurja islamu, whoever you expect or hope that they will accept Islam. Okay? أو يخشى شره, okay, مسلما كان أو كافرا. What if someone like you're fearing, مثلا there's a country that might attack, so you give them to push them away, push the harm away from them, then that would go into that مؤلفة قلوبهم. Okay? Or they say أو يرجى بعطيته قوة إيمانه. Yeah, someone who مثلا if you give them wealth, they're new to Islam مثلا, and they have a position, then if you give them, they will increase their iman. أو إسلام نظيره, or someone who is a similar high position to accept Islam, and so on. Now, what's interesting, Umar ibn Khattab radiallahu anhu, and he's from the Khulafa, and he's from those who the Prophet ﷺ said, take from my sunnah and the sunnah of the Khulafa al-Rashidin. During the time of Umar, he said, we're not going to give to this category. He literally said, we don't give to this category. Why? He said, we are not in a position of weakness anymore. Do you understand the fiqh of Umar radiallahu anhu? He said, the Prophet ﷺ needed to do that because we were in a position of weakness. But if you're in a position of strength, okay, of power, do you need to give someone money for them to support you? Or to push away harm from them? You already have power. So that's his ta'leel. Okay, so it was almost pretty much kind of not abrogated, but not kind of considered for a long time. Now, fuqaha are going back and reconsidering this category, okay, of zakat. مؤلفة قلوبهم. Sheikh Hassan is a brother. He wrote actually a very excellent paper, I think in his PhD in the university in Algeria. I think it was translated here for Zakat Foundation on this topic. Very good paper on that, مؤلفة قلوبهم, and why it should be reinstated, etc., and why it was stopped by Umar radiallahu anhu. So that's number 4. Then we go to number 5, وفي الرقاب, right? Those who الرقبة, we said, is the neck, right? And they say الرقاب, those who يعني are the slaves, because usually they're tied by the neck, right? This is like a kinaya for them. وفي الرقاب. طبعا the slaves, there are two types of slaves that can be given, okay? So number 1 is for the purpose of freeing them, okay? The purpose of freeing them. مثلا, they could be Muslim slaves somewhere, and so we use zakat money to free them, okay, to free them from imprisonment, etc. Or someone who is a slave. مثلا, a Muslim has a slave, but مثلا he's not 100%, because you cannot give zakat to a slave. Why? Because the money goes to who? The owner, okay. But if he's mujazza, he's a mukatib, a mukatib, someone who has paid مثلا 10% of his sale, okay, so he has some ownership, so you can actually give him to help him free himself from slavery, okay. وفي الرقاب. I'm going to just try to go faster so we can go through them. وفي الرقاب, okay. والغارمين. طيب, those who are in debt. Those who are in debt, this is important, and there's conditions for these people. Those who are in debt, طبعا there is people who are in debt for things that are a haja, a need, okay, or darura. And my car broke down, and I had to borrow money, and I need a car, to drive my family, to do shopping. It's a haja, okay. Everybody agree here that a car is a need, right? It's a haja. Pretty much can't live without a car here. If you don't believe me, wait till the winter, okay. Yeah, okay. But you understand that it's pretty much a haja. Like nowadays, you can't live, it's difficult. If you have a family, مثلا. If you're a student and whatever, مشي حالك, you can do that. Okay? So, and he had to, or مثلا somebody who's an Uber driver, and his income depends on a vehicle. Like, actually this question came to me. A person came to me, he said, I'm an Uber driver. The regulations for Uber drivers is that the car has to be minimum 10 years or more. If it's 11 years old, khalas, you cannot use it. He's like, I've hit the 10. So now I cannot use it for my income. Tamam? He was asking, can I lease? Or can I, finance? Because I don't have the money. Do you understand now? So is he in a haja? If he wasn't in a haja, he wouldn't need to go borrow. And his income depends on it. Okay? So someone like that, he's zakat, he's someone who is from the gharimin. But someone, he's well off, and he's like, you know what, I'm going to take a loan from my friend to buy like a business, and so I can become really wealthy. Is that eligible for zakah? No, because he did it to get wealthier. He didn't need that money, so he needs to figure that out by himself. He's not from those. There's people who are awla. There's people who are more in need of the money, right, than that person. Also, they mentioned the Muslim who incurs debt due to reconciliation. There's a problem between two people, and he had to borrow some money to do islah between them. They're fighting over, مثلا, I don't know, they both got in a car accident, and they're fighting, and they're gonna like cut ties, maybe they're brothers. And somebody came in and they said, you know what, I'll pay 5 for each, whatever, and as long as you guys make up. And he did islah, okay? And so this is something recommended in Sharia. This person, he's eligible for zakah. And if he took a loan to help people reconcile, then the Sharia actually helps this person out. Tamam? This is one of the people that would be considered from the gharimin. طبعا, if he's wealthy and he pays it from his own wealth, that's a lot more ajr for him. Okay, a lot more ajr for him. Number 7, they go to the person who's وَفِي سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ. Number 7, fi sabilillah. طب fi sabilillah, we say fi sabilillah means what? And for the sake of Allah. طب fi sabilillah, there's pretty much ijma'. يعني unanimous consensus that it's talking about jihad fi sabilillah. Okay. طبعا here's the thing. Some of them said jihad fi sabilillah doesn't mean literally the physical one only. Some of the ulama included مثلا Hajj. Why Hajj? Anybody? Hajj and Umrah? Huh? Anybody know? There's a hadith. The woman said, they asked, like the men go and fight. Yeah, for them jihad is like Umrah and Hajj. Remember, like the Prophet ﷺ mentioned that, right? So they said, oh, because of the hadith we can include it fi sabilillah, right? Some others became very flexible, especially now contemporary times. They said, really, okay, we don't have that bab. Well, what if there's no jihad, nothing happening, right? Taban, we're not talking about those who get an allowance from the country. If he's someone who's a dabit, he's doing ribat, he's guarding the borders, mathalan, he gets a salary, that's not considered, he's not from the people who would get, right? But let's say there's no one that enters in this bab. Some of the ulama, they actually went, they said, fi sabilillah, anything that is used to spread Islam, because that's a type of jihad. وَجَاهِدْهُمْ بِهَا جِهَادًا وَجَاهِدْهُمْ بِهِ Surah Al-Furqan جِهَادًا كَبِيرًا. He's talking about the Quran here. So they said, da'wah and spreading Islam is jihad fi sabilillah, can be considered like, it's a bit far, right? But they went a bit far here, but they said, yeah. So, and that's where some of them included, mathalan, the masajid and things like that, okay? So I just want you to know that if you hear this mas'ala, the asl, that majority, they said, no, it's only for jihad. Contemporary ulama, and some of the older ones, actually a few of them, they said we can be a bit flexible if there's a need for it. Right? If there's a need for it, because it's considered jihad fi sabilillah, spreading Islam, okay, and spreading the message of Islam, etc. Okay. Number 8, okay, wabn as-sabil. Ibn as-sabil is the one who's traveling. Now, you have to understand, back in the day, the one who's traveling, he doesn't have his phone, etc. And yani his wealth, he's not carrying, like a bag of. He's traveling, and maybe he's cut off. There's no way to communicate. Yani he might die in the street or something, right? And so that person, what if he's rich? Can we still give him zakat? Yeah, even if he's rich, tamam, you still give him zakat. Even nowadays, يعني مثلا, someone is traveling, he's wealthy, but he lost his wallet and his ID ومش عارف إيش, and he's in the middle of the haram, and everything's lost. He has no communication, nothing, and it's zakat time. Can he get zakat? Yeah, he can give him zakat to get around and get a card, figure things out. Okay. Just to get around and get back to his feet. So those are the 8. Okay. So again, to summarize those 8, we said al-fuqara, the poor, al-masakin, okay, al-amilin alayha, okay, wal-mu'allafati qulubuhum, okay, those who we give the money to in hopes that they will accept Islam or they will push away harm from Islam, okay, wal-gharimin, those who have in debt, okay, wa fi sabilillah, for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We said it could be those who are fighting for Allah, for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and other categories under that, wabn as-sabil, and the one who is traveling. طيب. Then the last category, then they talk about, he says here, let me just read the last section here. He says here, وَيَجُوزُ الْإِقْتِصَارُ عَلَى وَاحِدٍ مِّن صِنْفٍ. You're allowed to give your zakat to one of those 8. Because you might say, oh, do I have to give exactly an 8th for each person? No, you can give it to one person of those 8. Remember, here we're assuming that the person is giving a zakah himself. Nowadays we're used to giving it to the organization and they do it for us. But back in the day, everybody was responsible for his own zakah, and you can still do that. Yeah, and some ulama say it's recommended to pay your own zakah because it makes you feel like you're actually doing the actual ibadah. Tamam. So you're allowed to give it to one sinf. وَالْأَفْضَلُ تَعْمِيمُهُمْ وَالتَّسْوِيَةُ بَيْنَهُمْ. And he said, وَالْأَفْضَلُ, what's better is give some for each category and to give kind of equally. Okay, if you can find, sometimes it's hard to find the 8 categories, maybe the 3 or 4 categories. Okay, and he says it's sunnah إِلَى مَنْ لَا تَلْزَمُهُ مَؤُونَتُهُ مِنْ أَقَارِبِهِ. Okay, and it's sunnah to give those, okay, to those who he does not have to spend on, from the relatives. Okay? So, relatives are of two types. Okay, when we talk of relatives, those who you are responsible for, and those who are not responsible for. I want you to understand this. Okay, family, you have those who are responsible for, and those who you are not responsible for. Who are you responsible for? Wife, children, yeah, right? Right? But who you're not responsible? Are you responsible for your cousin? No, you're not really. You're not really responsible for your cousin. Okay? Are you responsible for, like, I don't know, an uncle or an aunt? They're not really from those who you are responsible for. Okay? Financially. So those people, you can give zakat to them, and it's sunnah. It's actually recommended. Yani if you had to choose, you have a cousin in the city, or give it to some stranger that you don't know, what's better? It's sunnah to give to the high. Why? Because you're joining between zakat and silatul rahim. وهذا أفضل. Okay? وتسن إلى من لا تلزمه مؤونته من أقاربه ولا تدفع لبني هاشم. He mentions now that there are people that are not allowed to get zakat. Banu Hashim are not allowed to get zakat. The family of the Prophet ﷺ, the people of Banu Hashim, and those who are from the lineage, okay? Because they are the Prophet's family, and we know several hadith that is mentioned from those. Even their slaves, okay, of Banu Hashim, okay, mawalihim yani, okay, they are treated like the Prophet's family. Your ancestors, here he's talking about al-usul, okay, wal-furu'. Okay, al-asl of the person, father, grandfather, etc. Okay, so those people, you cannot give zakat to them. Why? Because you're responsible for them aslan. Okay, we said that. Okay, your son, if he's broke, okay, do you give him zakat? No, you're responsible for him aslan. The grandson, all those, anybody that goes, they call them furu' and usul. Usul, anything from the top, okay, father, grandfather, etc. Great grandfather, and al-furu', anybody that's below that, okay? So, وَلَا تَدْفَعُوا لِبَنِي هَاشِمٍ وَمَوَالِيهِمْ وَلَا لِأَصْلٍ وَفَرْعٍ الْأَصْل, okay, father, grandfather, وَلَا وَفَرْعٍ وَعَبْدٍ وَكَافِرٍ, slave. Remember, because if you give it to a slave, who's going to take it? The master. The slave cannot spend, okay? I know it's Maghrib, just give me about 5 minutes, inshallah, or 5-10 minutes, and inshallah we'll pray right on time. وَكَافِر, can you give zakat to a kafir? Can you? You can't. No, you cannot give it unless all the Muslims have been given. Right? Inshallah, it's possible. It's possible. Is it possible? Yeah. All the Muslims have given, right? And then even here they're gonna talk about, are you allowed to give it to someone who needs to get married? They'll say, well, if the 8 carries are done, and there's people who need to be married, then we give it to those people, etc. But what if there's non-Muslims now? And it's mentioned in the time of Umar ibn Abdul Aziz, he went to look on to the non-Muslims as well. They even gave zakat to the animals now, because there was nobody that needed zakat. They looked for those who needed marriage. They looked to the end. They were like, just buy food for the animals. Subhanallah. Wallahu alam if those reports are true, but you see, that you go step by step. Okay, and then he says here, وَكَافٍ فَإِن دَفَعَهَا لِمَنْ ظَنَّهُ أَهْلًا. Now he's going to mention, okay, فلم يكن أو بالعكس لم تجزئ إلا الغني ظنه فقيرا. Okay, he's saying here, if you gave it to somebody other of those 8, okay, then it won't count. It won't count. You have to make sure. And so, if you do it yourself, you have to make sure that he's one of those 8 people. Now, if you're trusting an organization, you have to make sure also that the organization is going to do that. Okay? And sometimes people just blindly give it to any organization. You have to make sure. Okay? They say an exception, إلا لغني ظنه فقيرا. Except for a rich person who he thought he was poor. Sometimes there's wealthy people, and they look poor, they dress poor, whatever. And maybe he gave him the money. طبعا al-asl is that you try to find out. But he gave him, and it turned out later, okay, that he was fine. Then they say that then that's an exception. That person, okay, would count. That exception would count. But the asl is that you have to make sure. You have to make sure that he's one of those 8. The last thing I want to cover, which is mentioned here, صدقة التطوع, okay, voluntary charity. So he says here, وصدقة التطوع, okay, بالفاضل عن كفايته وكفاية من يمونه سنة مؤكدة. So the voluntary charity, بالفاضل, al-fadl is the extra. Okay, this is important to understand, because let me ask you a question. Are you allowed to give charity, sadaqah, okay, and and you have people you're responsible for that are in need? Are you allowed to give sadaqah? Yani you give sadaqah here, and you have, a grandfather or a son or a father or a mother, or a brother or a sister who's in need. Is it okay for you to give sadaqah here, like extra charity, voluntary charity? No. You're supposed to, so he says, بِالْفَاضِلْ عَنْ كِفَايَتِهِ وَكِفَايَةِ مَنْ يَمُونُ. Okay? And so it doesn't make sense for you to give sadaqah, and then at home, your kid doesn't have enough to buy a pencil case, or he's in need of new clothes, right? It doesn't make sense for you to give sadaqah and your child is in need of some things, or your wife is in need of some things, right? And your wife is complaining that you haven't gotten her things that she needs, right? Etc. Sadaqah is, yes, it's a sunnah mu'akkada, he says, after you have taken care of those of your family and those who you take care of, okay? Those who you take care of. This is important to know. So always, I'm not saying don't give sadaqah, but I'm saying you need to be careful that you make sure that you have taken care of your family. طبعا someone might say, well, how do I know? Do I have to spend? No, spend of what they need, and then you can give sadaqah. They don't have to have a Lexus each year. They don't have to be going to vacations every year. طبعا depending on the urf, you go back to the urf, depending on your family, etc. Okay, but you're not gonna say, مثلا, to your son, Wallah, maybe this is, you're not going to say to your son, I'm not going to pay for your education, go take a student loan, I'm going to give sadaqah to the masjid. Here it would make more sense what? To help your son, okay? طبعا you encourage him to get a job, right? Get a job, or maybe you had a fund for him before, okay? But you wouldn't put him in a situation where he would have to do haram to go do a sadaqah. Does that make sense? Okay? Or maybe you do some of each. You give some sadaqah and you try to help him, and you tell him to get a job, and you know what I mean? Like you try to do that. Okay, use your hikmah. Use your hikmah in these. It's not black or white all the time. And then he says, وفي رمضان وزمن ومكان فاضل ووقت حاجة أفضل. So now he's going to talk about like the specific times that are recommended, right? So he mentions here that there are specific times and places that is recommended. So in the blessed times and places, the good deeds and sins are multiplied. Good deeds and bad deeds. So therefore, to give voluntary charity during the following times and places is better than giving voluntary charity at other times and places. So for example, Ramadan, right? And that's why a lot of people do their actual zakat in Ramadan and a lot of the sadaqah in Ramadan, because it's actually recommended to pay it in those blessed times. Right? This is the best time to give voluntary charity, right? In the nights of Ramadan, the last 10 nights, right? Maybe the odd nights as well, specifically. The 10 days of the Hijjah, right? We have those. Those are the best 10 days of the year, right? Al-Ashhur al-Hurum, Muharram, Rajab, Dhul Qa'dah, and Dhul Hijjah, right? We're in those months right now. So this is from the recommended months to give sadaqah in, and also in blessed places, makanin as well, in Mecca, Medina, fi Bayt al-Maqdis, in Jerusalem. So those are places that it is recommended, and it's also recommended in the times of need. Okay, so the times of need, meaning like if there's a famine or there's a disaster. So now it's even more sunnah to give charity. مثلا what's happening in Gaza now, in Palestine, now it's even more, right? It's more highly recommended to give sadaqah in these times. Wallahu ta'ala a'lam. With that, we are done bab fiqh of zakat, and what we're going to do, inshallah, next week. We never did a review and a test for Sawm, so we'll do inshallah next week, okay? And I'm going to share these slides with the YouTube channel, inshallah, on our channel, inshallah. All the videos that we have done here are recorded and they're online. we'll be putting a link for these slides. And so we'll have a test on fasting and zakat. Right? An excellent opportunity. If you've attended or you haven't attended, for you to review and test yourself. So you can actually regain this knowledge and try to consolidate this knowledge, right? And so that you can use it bi'idhnillahi ta'ala. And remember, this is considered from the best a'mal at-tatawwu', seeking knowledge and learning the deen. Okay, it actually can be considered wajib. In some cases, if you're eligible for zakah, it's wajib for you to learn this. And if not, then it's from the highest levels of voluntary acts of worship. So inshallah, next week we will have a test. Like if you've been here before, we'll have some prizes, we'll have some food inshallah. So come, bring your family. We'll have a test on fasting and on zakat. And then what we'll do is we'll be doing after that zakat, the fiqh of Hajj and Umrah in probably 2 or 3 weeks. Okay? And then maybe Sheikh Hassan will take over after that. And then we'll go into a new chapter of fiqh bi'idhnillah ta'ala. Again, our goal is to kind of go through all the chapters of fiqh from the beginning until the end. Barakallahu feekum. I think there's 2 minutes till the iqamah. If anybody has a quick question, please, تفضل. Remember, he said that you're allowed to give one sinf, one category only. Okay. But al-afdal innak to give to different ones, the same amount. مثلا if you find people locally who are from 4 of the 8 categories, okay, and مثلا you have 4,000, you give them 1,000 each. Or sometimes you look at the need, right? Maybe the one who's in debt, it's only $500 مثلا, or $1,000, or maybe someone who's faqir, he's about to be homeless, so maybe he's more in need of it. فأنت you use your hikmah and your wisdom with that. Or maybe sometimes he's a relative that he's from one category, so maybe you بتقدم هذا على الآخر. You use your wisdom inshallah. وكله جاء مجزئ, as long as you pay your zakat and you do it with your niyyah and the proper. تفضل. No? خلاص تمام. Okay, last one and then we'll do the adhan iqamah. تفضل. والسلام.
What if I can't find 4 people to give? Do I just give the zakat to the masjid?
So yeah, if you physically or you want to do it yourself and you can't find anybody, then you ask someone who you trust, like some of the organizations who can do it on your behalf, who can pay zakat al-mal on your behalf, and then you are not responsible for that. As long as you've done your due diligence to make sure that they are trustworthy, you don't just blindly give it to anybody. Okay, then inshallah, then it will count that you have paid it. Even if they didn't do it or they did something with it, then for you, it's off your back. You've paid it as long as you've done your due diligence. Wallahu ta'ala. Jazakumullah khairan. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. We'll do the adhan.